Hey guys, Willie Geist here with another episode of the Sunday Sitdown podcast. And my guest this week, I think you could make a pretty good case, is the biggest star in Hollywood right now, Bradley Cooper. Bradley and I got together at a little restaurant in the Village here in New York City to talk about his directorial debut for the film everybody's been talking about for months now, A Star is Born. As I said, he directs it, he co-stars in it, and he's joined, of course, by Lady Gaga. They're nominated for 8 Oscars together, Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress among them. And it's been a long time coming. Bradley, years ago, took over this project, wasn't quite sure where he was going to go with the star in A Star is Born. He was thinking, do I get an actress who can sing? And then, as you'll hear, he was at a cancer benefit one night, and he saw Lady Gaga get up on the stage and sing La Vie en Rose. And almost a chill went up his spine, and he said, oh my God, I've found my Allie, who is the character in A Star is Born. He also talks about Hangover, also talks about his long road to Hollywood success, the movies that jump-started his career, favorites like The Hangover, Limitless, Silver Linings Playbook, plus what it's like to work now with so many of the people he idolized as a young kid growing up. Robert De Niro, for example. Bradley and I have known each other for a long time, and he always talks about when you're a basketball player and you got the poster of Michael Jordan up on your wall as a kid, what do you do when all of a sudden you find yourself playing with Michael Jordan? He's passing you the ball and letting you take the shot at the end of the game. That's how he feels about Robert De Niro and a bunch of these other actors that he now works with all the time. He's also a Philadelphia guy who grew up in a tight-knit family, his mother, who is his biggest fan, as you'll hear, and his father, who died in 2011 after a long fight with cancer. You'll hear just how emotional that was and just how close he was to his dad. It's a great, candid, at times you'll hear, emotional interview with Bradley Cooper, and it's right now.
Bradley? Oh, no, it's a pleasure. Long overdue.
It is long overdue.
Congratulations with your show, 3 years.
Thank you very much. Coming up on it. And congratulations to you on Star is Born, man. I was with you a couple nights ago at the National Board of Review Awards when you won Best Director. What's it been like, given the amount of time and energy and effort and mind share you've given to this project, to have it received the way it's been received?
It's overwhelming. Yeah, I mean, the fact that you never know. You have this idea of something that's pretty outrageous in the sense of like the 4th remake of A Star is Born, a sort of iconic property and films that have been successful of this idea. But I think I was just getting to an age where I was 40 years old, and you know, part of it also has to do with the fact that, you know, there was a bunch of directors that I've always dreamt of working with, and they just weren't asking me to do movies. It's like I'm 40 now, I keep waiting, and you know, and I thought, no, I'm just gonna. That was part of what sort of prompted me, or I wouldn't say prompted me, encouraged me out of frustration almost to say I got to do it myself. And there's this property that I really thought was a great sandbox to investigate things that I've been thinking about. Like I wanted to tell a love story. I wanted to investigate childhood trauma, what it is to find your identity, all these different things. So it was like a culmination of like being at that age, not being able to work with the people I wanted to work with, and also always wanting to tell a story and finally having the courage to do it.
What was it about this story that you were so interested in and you thought, this is worth me taking a few years, literally, out of my career and putting it all into that?
I think it was that. I think it was... It's hard to say, like, it wasn't like there was like, oh, like there's a log line of what it is. It's like moments. You know, I was at the Metallica concert behind Lars Ulrich at the drum kit, and I saw this composition. I thought, oh, it'd be amazing to if that's how you experience it at the same concert as a viewer and watching a film. Like, it's so intimate and at the same time, the epic scope. And then Clint Eastwood was going to direct it, and he talked to me about this movie, and I read it, a version, you know, another version that's not our version, and I thought, and I remembered the Christopherson, Barbra Streisand, which I hadn't really seen, but you know, the reverberations of that film for us growing up, I mean, you couldn't escape it, right? Nor would you want to, but so you always had these images in your mind, and then I always kind of thought maybe I could play a musician, just based on the fact of all of these sort of rock stars that I'd sort of idolized as a kid and sort of spent time, and you know, you're walking around daydreaming, you know, and my father playing me so much music, loving music. So just a bunch of different things. And then I just thought, I've always wanted to direct. I've always been so curious about how films are made. I realized that early on when I was doing a television show called Alias, and I would always spend all of my time watching how they would as I've been able to grow as an actor. The directors have been so giving with their time and energy with me with movies, like David O. Russell. There's no way I would have been able to direct this movie without David O. Russell, who really invited me into his process for Silver Linings Playbook and American Hustle and even Joy.
I know there are people around you, though, who said, love that you want to be a director, go for it, but man, don't start with something this ambitious where you're starring, you're directing. Yeah, I was one of them. Are you crazy? But you got to learn an instrument and play the piano, and you've got to help a first-time starring actress along as well. Did you ever listen to those voices and say, maybe this isn't the place to start as a director?
I mean, I certainly listened to them. I took it in. But in a way, maybe that even allowed me to persevere more, because it demanded that I dig deep and figure out what it is, how real does this story feel to me? How much of a motivating factor is it for me to have to tell the story? And I come down on it. And making a movie, any movie, you have to go on faith. I think no matter who you are, how many great movies you've made, you're always starting at zero. Right. Again. So it's all on a deep sense of a want to tell the story, and an instinct about a person when you meet them, or an idea. Like I knew Dave Chappelle had to play the character of Noodles, so it's just about trying to get them to do it. And I think it's just the love of wanting to finally tell stories before I get too old. That really motivated. And having something to say, it's kind of like what I wrote with Jackson Says to Her in the Bar. If you have something to say and a way to say it to make people listen to it, you got to do it.
You got a great cast, you got a great story, but there's no guarantee that it's going to turn out the way you have it in your head, because you've got the wild card, I would suggest, is that you've got to learn how to be a musician. You think you can do it, but then you got to learn how to do it. And I actually remember, not to disclose too much, but when you were in the editing room, we were right. We were texting back and forth, and you were like, this could have gone either way. Like, my singing could have ruined the movie.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
But I don't think it did, and you were right.
But I also made the bandwidth with which I would sing as small as I could, so that I could do well with it, you know? And, but I worked hard, Roger Love, this incredible voice coach. I had no idea how hard it was to sing. That was the other thing. I think there was a little bit of if I knew just how much work I would have had to done, I don't know. But learning how to breathe in front of an audience, because the first thing that goes when you get nervous is your breath. Right. But then if you have to sing, you have to be completely open and fluid, because this is literally the instrument. So I spent just tons of hours working with him and Lucas Nelson, and I set up, my basement was like a little studio, and we had microphones and amps and a piano and guitars, but it was also fun. I mean, that's the other thing, Willie. It's like it was so much fun. So that was also a motivating factor. I wasn't sort of live saying like, do we have another hour to work with Lucas Nelson? I mean, it was incredible. Fear would come in, but I think that just motivated me to work as hard as I could.
And then there's the question of who you were.
Because we sang live.
Right. Throughout, and you've always said you had to do that live. Yeah. And I think Gaga said the same thing. No lip sync.
Yeah. There's no. I mean, the songs scenes occur during songs, so it would be so odd. It would be like if we were dubbing this conversation.
Right. Yeah. So you then had to go find your star, and the now famous story is that you saw Lady Gaga singing at the benefit at Sean Parker's house.
Yeah.
You go over to her house the next day. You have the leftover pasta. You play the piano. You sing together. Was she on your radar before that event? In other words, as you thought about this movie?
She started to be like a week before. Her agent, I had talked to her agent, and then I found out coincidentally that I was talking about a foundation for my father at that event, and that she was going to be the last act. So I knew she was coming up. But I had been watching her on. I guess we had met at Saturday Night Live years ago. She had. I was at the one Academy Awards show where she sang, but it wasn't really until that moment when she sang La Vie en Rose that it just it was just one of those moments where that was it. Is that idea that strikes, and then you just know, that's it. So hopefully I'll meet her, she'll agree to meet with me, and then let's see what that's like. But right now, when I'm watching her on stage sing that song, and watching the effect of the room.
That's it.
Yeah, it was just like.
But there's a big leap from your reaction to it to her, who's never starred in a major motion picture before, taking on that project. And so that's the second step,
which was then meeting her at her house and talking to her. And right away, I just thought, that's it. If I could just get her to be as open and as free and warm as she is right now, infused into Allie, I think we'll be okay. You know, and if I could pull that off, first of all, her singing's like a nuclear weapon, and then now learning about her energy, part of why I want just when she walks in a room, well, I just felt like I hit a gold mine.
So what's the pitch to her when you go by her house the next day? Because she's probably not thinking, I'm ready to put my music career on hold and go do this movie.
I just told her exactly, I just tried to speak completely from the heart of why I wanted to tell the story, why I thought she was right for it, what I wanted to investigate in the movie. And then also letting her know that the only way she's going to be able to do this successfully, or I'll be able to make her do it successfully, is if she trusts me 100%. And that's the blind faith. And there was a bit of a barter, which I talked about, which is, and then I have to trust her that she's not going to allow me to be Jackson Maine on stage with her.
Right.
If she doesn't believe that I'm Jackson Maine.
Right. Right. Well,
Which was a great litmus test, because the first time we ever sang live was at Coachella. In between she headlined that year, so we had the run of the fairgrounds for Lady Gaga. So we sent blasted out this email to all of her fans, and so we got I think 300 or 400 people came, and then we controlled it, but it was live, meaning there were people there.
Right.
And I remember the first time we were singing this song, "Dig in My Grave," and she was looking at me like I was Jackson Maine, and that helped. I already believed I was, but then Lady Gaga as Allie believing me, and then we started singing, and I could, it didn't sound horrible. And I thought, okay, this is working.
Right.
But that gave me the confidence to then jump on Stagecoach by myself, and then Glastonbury by myself. But I don't think if I hadn't been with her initially, there's no way I think I would have been able to do that.
So then, what's it like now as we come full circle at the event we were both at the other night, where she gets up on stage to accept an award for Best Actress, and she looks at you and she says, "Bradley, you are a musician," and she meant it. It came from the heart. In other words, you weren't faking being a musician. You are a musician.
Yeah, my reaction though was like, no, I'm not. But writing songs. I think it's because it was so tied into Jackson Maine. I know that sounds like little, I don't know, whatever the word is, but I really believe that. That was him. I love music. I guess I'm very musical. That I learned, and I love writing songs. I didn't realize that, although I did used to write songs when I was a kid. But a musician is a vocation to me. It feels like, and I would have to dedicate a lot more time to become a musician. But I loved it, and I'm glad that I had a proclivity for it. Is that the word?
Yeah.
And
Georgetown word there. That's good.
Or Vanderbilt. That's disgusting.
We'll cut that out.
No, leave it in.
So is it weird to you now that, I know you say it's through Jackson Maine, but it is your voice and it's your playing, to look at the iTunes list and see the number one song in America is by Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga?
Yeah, that was, I didn't. Thing is wonderful.
Yeah.
It's such what you said from the beginning, what does it feel for something that you felt so deep inside to be received well? I mean, it's, it's just overwhelming, It's like thinking, okay, maybe your instinct isn't wrong. This business is so hard and so often things don't work. So when things work, it's like you just have to make sure to take it in. That's the thing I keep telling myself. It's just like, make sure to just take it in. What a shame if I didn't.
Then you got Steven Spielberg standing up on a stage, going on and on about what a great director you are, how this is just the beginning of your great career as a director. I was actually in the wings with him when he went up and he was talking about you. And he said, I knew immediately with Bradley. He said, I've seen the screen test.
He was actually
one
of the people that encouraged me to go for it.
Did he?
Yeah.
What did he tell you?
I just said, he said, you have to see it through. And then that was before I shot the screen test. That was when I was starting to write it initially.
So
I didn't Jackson because they didn't see the idea of her and I together. And I think they were probably also a bit nervous about the whole idea in general, me directing this movie. So I shot a screen test, but it was even more than a screen test for her. I wound up taking that advantage and shooting a real scene and at her house and editing it for a couple weeks. I wrote a 10-page scene of him waking her up. And Jackson Maine didn't even exist at all. My voice wasn't low. I tried earrings, Bono earrings.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it did not work on my face at all. And when you ask people, they're trying to be polite. I'm like, does it think it works? They're like, Yeah. I'm like, no.
Right.
So there's no Jackson Maine, but it was all, but there was a chemistry. There was something that you felt, especially towards the end of the scene. And I went to his house, and I just thought he's the greatest. And I thought he'll tell me, and he'll tell you the truth. And so that was a real, it was incredible to be able to show him that at his house before I showed it to Warner Brothers.
Ball in the post. One of the things I love about you, and you touched on a minute ago, is that you're still kind of in awe of all this that's happened in your life over the last 10 years or 15 years. And when Spielberg gave you the award, you turned and you said, "Thank you, Steven." And then you said, "I can't believe I get to call you Steven."
Yeah, it's crazy.
And we've talked about that before. You work with Robert De Niro. It's like if you play basketball and the poster of Michael Jordan's on your wall,
right,
and then you're playing
that's
with
it.
them.
Yeah, that's
right?
it. Yeah.
And you still have that.
How could you not? I mean, I love it so much. How could I never? That would never end. That comes with the love of doing this. The thing I loved that Steven said was a survivor. I couldn't believe he said that.
Yeah.
I was like, I was so happy he said it. It's like,
what did you take that to mean?
Well, just because I've been doing this for 20 years, and I know that it's almost like people talk about agents. Oh, he's so agent. He's an actor. But like I find this. Feel so lucky to be in this profession. I hold it with such high deal. I think it's an incredible thing to watch people give all of themselves to tell a story. And that's what I was talking about there when I was listening to The Room. It's like, because if you do it with love, it's for you. It's not a selfish thing. But with the fear, it's all about me. How are people going to feel about me?
Right.
And I feel like when I'm in a collaborative arena with artists telling a story, it all feels like it has nothing to do with us, that we're actually serving something else. And to me, that's it. That's the ideal way to live. Right? I mean, that's what we're trying to do, is heal each other and remind each other that we're all together in this. Because I don't want to be alone and walk down the road of life alone. Because then it's just me in my head. That's bueno. I want it. So to be able to be in a profession that I can make a living at and raise a family and dedicate all my time to telling stories, I mean, that I hold that in like the highest regard possible. So to be able to be with people that I've admired, who've done that for me as a kid, that's endless. Let's take one. Overwhelming in a great way.
You can add Clint Eastwood to that list.
Yeah.
I know it was one of your dad's favorites too,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, of course.
This guy.
Yeah.
So you've been nominated for 3 Academy Awards in years past. How much would it mean to you to win one either for director, actor, picture this time around, given how much you've poured into this project?
It would be. Well, just to be nominated would be great. Let's take one step at a time.
Sorry, I jumped ahead. Yeah.
Let's see if we get nominated.
I think you're going to be okay in that regard.
Who knows, man? You never know. But the truth, I know people talk about it all the time. Award, it's an odd thing to award something that's artistic. It's not like a sporting event where you cross the line and that person finished 2 seconds before the other person. That's it. This is all a subjective medium. So it's a tough thing to get your head around, being a part of something like that, because it's so being a part of an art form to me.
Yeah.
The thing I do love about it is to be in a room with people and you should be reminded that you're a part of a community. It was like, that's why I love doing theater in New York, is, the play ends and you all go to the same 3 places and you see somebody who's doing it right down the street or somebody who just got off, and that's incredible. And you're like, oh, it's not just this play that's going on right now. At 8:05, the Broadway lights up and all these stories are being told. Being a part of a community is amazing. When you make a movie, you're not reminded of that as much, because everybody's parsed out throughout the country and the world. So to be in a room and see Denzel Washington there supporting his son, who I just realized, I didn't know that was his son. I just saw the movie. He's incredible.
Yeah, he's great.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Because I was sitting there and I saw him in the beginning and I'm like, what? And then he didn't go up and present. And then later they said, no, that was his son, Black Klansman. I had no idea.
Yeah, he was just there to support him.
He's incredible.
Yeah.
And then Christian Bale's sitting right here, and then Dick Van Dyke, who always reminded me of my father, so much like my dad. Seeing him, and then Carol Burnett getting that award, to be in that room was awesome.
Yeah.
Jeff Bridges right there.
Oh, how great was he?
It was amazing. So that aspect of it is kind of infectious. It's kind of wonderful.
And you still pinch yourself. I know you do.
Oh, yeah.
When you look around, you can't believe you deserve to be in that room.
Now I just sort of bathe in of just seeing everybody. Just like and the fact that some of these people I know now,
right?
And they're warm people, because that's the other thing. Denzel Washington's such a wonderful, he and his wife, they're so wonderful. That's incredible, you know. Somebody who's your hero growing up, and then you see them and they're like, hey, and they're normal, and then everybody's like a human being.
Right.
That's the other thing.
Right. That's always true.
Yeah.
People forget that. But then it's got to be a weird thing that you're in the club. Like one day, all of a sudden, you're like, oh, I get to come in the door and hang out with these people.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, I remember the first time I went to the Golden Globes was with Alias and Jennifer Garner. I was like all the way in the back and just sort of seeing like Cameron Diaz and Ewan McGregor like walking like it all just felt like and also the place felt like the Thunderdome. And now it's like a small little
right.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's like going back to your high school and you're like, oh, I imagined I remember when I went back to my 25th year reunion and I'm looking at all the kids and they look like kids. Yeah. But when I was in high school, like the seniors looked like you look.
They were men.
Yeah. And I kept asking the teachers, have kids gotten younger looking? Because literally in my brain, you know, it's like Zach Burwell looked old.
Yeah. Well, think about your parents. When my parents were my age, they were old, 43.
I know.
Oh my God, they were fully formed, grown. Now I feel not in that position. So this year will be the 10th anniversary of The Hangover.
Oh.
2009.
Right. We shot in 2008.
Right, but when it was released.
Yeah.
And I think most people mark that as the beginning of this run for you. I mean, you had a bunch of movies and you had an Alias, but you were the guy from Wedding Crashers, right?
No question about it.
So what did The Hangover do? Did it open?
First of all, financially, it was like the idea of making money like that blew me away.
Right.
And then it allowed a studio like Relativity at the time to take a chance and hire me to play a role in Limitless, the leading role in Limitless. So I think that really was Limitless. I think that encouraged people like David O. Russell to say, you know, maybe we'll take a chance, or like what's his name, Tom Rothman at Fox to say, okay, maybe he could do the A-Team. I think without that, there's no way that people would have taken a chance.
So you go from that, Silver Linings, then that's the big budget. Okay, I know your name, I know your face, and then
Limitless was the one, and then all these other movies. I don't think they would have ever taken a chance.
Right.
If Limitless didn't work, then that's it.
Right.
Even with The Hangover.
Yeah.
Because The Hangover was just it was about the triumvirate.
Right.
So I went to this guy tell the story.
Yes.
You know, as an actor.
Right. And you had to sell that a little bit to one of your heroes,
to Robert De Niro. Yeah. Because that was the other thing. They weren't going to make the movie unless there was another name, and or a name, because I wasn't even really a name. And Robert De Niro, I kept thinking, Robert De Niro would be great for this Carl Van Loon character. But it was such a small role, so then I read the book and I thought, what if we combine two roles from the book and make his character larger? So I went to his hotel room and pitched it to him, and it was crazy.
So you walk into De Niro's hotel room, this guy, again, the poster on the wall.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey.
I mean, I didn't have his poster on my wall.
But, you know, figuratively. That'd be a little weird, I guess.
No, I mean,
you have a taxi driver.
Yeah, but I didn't. Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah,
I
Raging Bull,
posters
maybe.
On my wall. Yeah, I had pennants.
Right.
The Phillies.
Yeah,
Eagles.
Eagles. Yeah. One of your heroes, though, and you have the job of convincing him to take a role.
It was amazing. Right? But again, you know, you meet these people, and Robert De Niro I had met before, even though I don't think he remembered it. I had auditioned to play. The fact that he to play a role in Everybody's Fine, which was a movie he did, and my mom and I did the tape at my house in Venice, California, and we sent it in. And he asked his agent if he could meet me, and I went and met him, and that was the first time I had sort of talked to him one-on-one. And he just met with me to tell me that I wasn't going to get the job, but that he wanted me to know, like, don't stop because I see something in you.
Wow.
So the fact that he did that, number one, it really reveals who he is as a person.
Yeah.
To take that time, because it didn't serve him at all. And then so I felt a little bit of comfort because that had happened, to go and talk to him at the hotel, even though I don't know if he remembered that. But I went to the hotel.
No memory of it.
But he was so present and interested, and then he called his agent right away and said, I want to do the movie.
Yeah. Well, he loves you. I know that, having talked to him about it. You mentioned your mom. What does your mom think about the success of Star is Born and what's happening right now?
No, this one's not going to work. It's like, no, Bradley, no, I'm telling you, you're a cook, and you've always been a chef. It's going to be, I'm like, Mom, it's not going to work. You know what I mean? No, Emma Stone's amazing. Hawaii, Bill Murray's, Mom, it's not going to work. And so she started being like, oh, maybe I'm wrong. She would think. So now she does it with caution,
okay.
which I kind of dig, man.
Right.
She's like, I don't know, it's tough out there.
She's flipped on you.
But she's definitely like it did a total 180.
So did she see early cuts of this? And, like, did she look at the movie and go, I don't know, Bradley?
No, she loved it.
She loved it right away.
She did, yeah.
How couldn't you, I guess, right?
I mean, it felt like we had something special early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think about, and I know you do, what your dad would think about where you are in your career right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think he's thinking?
I don't know, man. Yeah, it's part of life. Yeah.
Who's your guy?
Yeah.
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 Anyway.
Sorry, man.
No, that's okay.
Listen, I know. Well, I guess as you look down the road a little bit, you gonna keep doing this thing?
I hope so.
Keep directing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. As long as I did. I mean, you have to love something so much that you're willing to put the work in.
Yeah.
And as long as that keeps happening, yeah.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. Stick around to hear more from Bradley Cooper, including how his
19th century
made him who he is today.
Hey, it's Chris Hayes. Sometimes it's good to just take a step back from the day-to-day onslaught of news and take a broader look at the issues. That's what I'm doing each week on my podcast, Why Is This Happening? We're exploring topics ranging from school segregation to climate change.
Well, the way that I think of it is climate change will be to the 21st century what modernity was to the 19th century. It'll be the central subject of questions about economic justice. Everything that you care about in the world will be affected by climate.
And digging deep with guests uniquely qualified to analyze issues from mass incarceration to race relations.
As you know, for the first time in our history at the national level, whites are on the verge of losing their majority status in 20 years. And I think it's no coincidence that our politics are getting more tribal.
Join me for Why Is This Happening? New episodes every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to the Sunday Sitdown podcast. Now, here's more of my conversation with Bradley Cooper. Famous Eagles fan, famous Phillies fan.
I'm not put of shape. That's hilarious, by the way.
What?
We just say famous fan.
Well, there's a lot of cutaways of you. That Super Bowl, man.
Right.
Like every 10 minutes, you're in the box, slow-mo, yelling down the Philly special. You're the face of the Eagles fan base now. How did Philly shape you, make you who you are?
Philadelphia, the town?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, everything. Jeez. I mean, it's your roots, so wherever I would have grown up would have shaped me. Growing up, I think, my parents coming from where they did, my mother being Italian, my father being Irish, their respective parents being firemen and policemen, and my mother having two brothers, my father having a sister, all that. My sister and I growing up in Jenkintown, both of my parents having moved from the inner city sort of into the sort of semi-suburbs. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess people really wouldn't even call them suburbs today. I think just by the name, felt like I lived in like a palace,
right?
Till I went to GA.
Right.
It's a lot of discovery. A lot of socioeconomic discovery as a kid growing up in Philly. Also just culturally, I was just very lucky. I was very exposed to a lot of different cultures in Philadelphia, which you wouldn't have thought. Mm-hmm. My parents were very smart about taking me everywhere, and I think just by the nature of where they came from. I was exposed to a lot of different socioeconomic, cultural realities early on. I think that has served me invaluably throughout my life. Also, there's a individuality about Philadelphia. There's just such a strong personality that the city has. That you meet anybody that comes from Philadelphia, you kind of know in 2 seconds. It's really incredible. No, it's really other than Boston. I haven't really found that.
Right.
It's where I learned San Francisco in its own completely different way has that too.
Right.
And And as I left there to go to college, as the years go on, I miss it more and more, which I never would have thought growing up, that I would want to go back there. And I want to go back there all the time. And I even thought about maybe moving back there.
Really?
Yeah.
You do that?
I would maybe do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really love it.
And it's also where you learn to love movies too, right?
It's where I learned everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, Comcast came through Philadelphia in the 80s, I think. And that was, if Comcast hadn't come through Philadelphia, I don't know if I would be an actor, because, all of a sudden, the Elephant Man and Apocalypse Now and, all The Dresser and all these movies are playing on a loop on Prism and HBO.
Yeah.
It was a little toggle thing above your television.
I remember that.
And so I would just watch movies all the time. And then also having movie theater right behind my house. But the idea, who knows movies all the time, amazing, incredible, auteur-driven movies, just sort of me watching them all the time as a kid was huge.
And amazing.
So thank you, Comcast.
And thank you, Comcast, and thank you, Comcast, for everything you've done for me. The fact that Elephant Man was one of your earliest movies.
Yeah.
What a great full circle moment to do that on Broadway.
Oh,
right?
I mean, that's the thing. If you love something so much and you feel it so deep and you put the work in, who knows where it'll take you. And that's what happened with The Star Is Born. And I think that's hopefully what will happen in the next project I do. That there's a deep seated inspiration that I hold on to, and that's the fuel to, which I'm sure you do with your work. There's something you've always wanted to do or investigate or be a part of.
Sure.
So otherwise, I don't know how to put that kind of work in. Do you?
Yeah, no,
There's
you
no
have
way.
to.
Yeah.
No, you got to believe in it.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations, man.
Thank you.
Proud of you.
You too.
Well done.
Thanks.
My Geist will see you. Bradley Cooper for sitting down and spending some time with us on the Sunday Sit Down podcast. He wasn't doing any press. The movie came out in October, but was good enough to take the time and hang out with us. He is truly one of the all-time great guys. My thanks to all of you for tuning in this week to hear more of our conversations with all my guests. Be sure to click subscribe and listen for free every week. And don't forget to tune in to Sunday Today every weekend on NBC. I'm Willie Geist. We'll see you right back here next week on the Sunday Sit Down podcast.
Hey, it's Chris Hayes. Sometimes it's good to just take a step back from the day-to-day onslaught of news and take a broader look at the issues. That's what I'm doing each week on my podcast, Why Is This Happening? We're exploring topics ranging from school segregation to climate change.
Well, the way that I think of it is climate change will be to the 21st century what modernity was to the 19th century. It'll be the central subject of questions about economic justice. Everything that you care about in the world will be affected by climate.
As you know, for the first time in our history at the national level, whites are on the verge of losing their majority status in 20 years. And I think it's no coincidence that our politics are getting more tribal.
Join me for Why Is This Happening? New episodes every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts.